Call to order this regular meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris this Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. The time is now 7:02. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ravitz,
Here.
Mr. Mancuso,
Here.
Ms. Wilson,
Here.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Here.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Here. I'll ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If those joining us remotely can mute themselves while we do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our May Township Committee meeting and the minutes of our May special meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 18th, 2022, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting of May 26th, 2022, please?
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Proclamations and recognition. We have a few proclamations this evening that I'll be going over and some recognition as well. Welcome everyone who's joining us this evening remotely. We continue to run these meetings virtually in Town Hall. There are 5 of us in here. It's myself, Deputy Mayor Kathy Wilson, our Township Administrator Tim Quinn, and our Township Attorney Jared Cantor. Mark Daly, our IT Manager, is also here to help us run the meeting. Everyone else on the governing body and other professionals are remote. First proclamation I did want to read or provide an overview is for Pride Month. As many people know, June is Pride Month. Back in 2020, I was pleased to author the Township's first Pride Month proclamation, and I'm happy that this is happy to be issuing another for the 3rd year in a row with the Township Committee. Morris Township as a community supports an end to all forms of prejudice and discrimination. All people, regardless of age, gender identity, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, or physical challenges, have the right to be treated on the basis of their intrinsic value as human beings. We urge all residents to respect and honor our diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusiveness and acceptance, not just in June, but throughout the entire year. Furthermore, as a committee, we affirm our support for the LGBTQ+ residents in our community and stand with them to protect their civil rights and their ability to live openly without fear. I strongly encourage the public to celebrate Pride Month with us this year, and wanted to highlight that the Morris County Pride event, which took place last year in Morris Township, will be held this year on June 25th from 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the County College of Morris. Next, which isn't on our agenda, I did want to recognize Juneteenth, which is coming up this Sunday. For those who do not know, on June 19th, 1865, federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas to free the remaining enslaved people in the United States. To commemorate that date, Juneteenth has now become a federal holiday and a state holiday. And as of our approved ordinance in May, it is now a municipal holiday. So I wanted to remind residents that we will have our offices closed on Friday this week to recognize Juneteenth. And this will be the first time we are doing this. And we will do it now in the future. So I just wanted to recognize that. Next, for proclamations, June is Gun Violence Awareness Month. And I think with so much strife and these horrible actions that have taken place recently in the United States, recognizing gun violence is so critical. And tonight we're fortunate to have a few people joining us who have done so much work to not only shed a light on shed a light on gun violence, but also try to fight it. So our second, the horrifying events that unfolded at Uvalde and Buffalo are an unfortunate reality that our country has had to face far too often. And etched into our brains, along with those that occurred in Newtown, Pulse Nightclub, Las Vegas, Parkland, the Washington Navy Yard, the list goes on and on. As a mayor, one of the first official actions I took was joining Mayors Against Illegal Guns, a coalition of mayors fighting to end gun violence in America. We are fortunate to have common sense gun safety laws here in New Jersey, but they are clearly not enough. Federal action must be taken to provide consistency, clarity, and safety. Fear of going to school, religious services, the movie theater, baseball games, or any other normal public events have now become stressful for people and quite frankly scary for parents due to the potential for mass shootings. This is intolerable and it's unacceptable here in the United States. We are so grateful and fortunate to have active volunteers within our community who have made it their mission to help stop gun violence. Teresa Piliero, a township resident who used to live in Southbury, Connecticut, a town that abuts Newtown, has committed herself to ending gun violence since the Sandy Hook massacre. Her deep passion for ending gun violence has been strengthened through the grassroots group of concerned individuals like herself who want to make sure our communities are safer for our children and grandchildren. Moms Demand Action started as an online group after the Sandy Hook massacre and has become a leading voice of reason when it comes to public safety initiatives. Teresa, an active member of Moms Demand Action, is joined tonight by fellow volunteers, including Fern Wilkin, Jamie O'Brien, Jerry Patznick, and Nicole Olivo-Moore. Teresa, we are so grateful to have you in our community to provide this diligent work as a member of Moms Demand Action and as a resident. We're also grateful for your fellow volunteers, Fern, Jamie, Jerry, and Nicole. We applaud the efforts you have made and are continuing to make in our community to make it safer, for your persistence in advocating for what is right, both to state and federal lawmakers. Morris Township stands with you as voices of reason, and we cannot thank you enough for your continued diligent work. So Mark, I think you're gonna turn it over to Teresa, and if we have everyone else on, we can recognize them if they wanted to provide some comments.
Gonna bring her over.
Mark Daly, can you put your own microphone on mute because we're getting a lot of clicking and noise in the background?
She should be coming over.
All right, Teresa.
Hi, everyone. First and foremost, want to extend a big thank you for all you do as mayor and council people to end gun violence. I see Tara, who's been an active member with us here in Moms Demand Action for several years. And I know all of you up there are working hard to help end gun violence. And we have had an excellent partnership with Catherine Wilson in the past and presented last year. So I am very grateful that you recognize gun violence awareness. And like you said, we should all be able to live, work, and play in an America that is safe and free from senseless gun violence. And the way that's going to happen is by having our elected Congresspeople enact common gun sense legislation, and now is the time for action. So whoever's listening out there in our virtual world, please take a moment to text the word BOLD, B-O-L-D, to 64433, and that will immediately connect you with your congressperson, and you can tell them the time to take action is now. We don't have to live like this.
I don't really have anything to add, but I also thank you for this effort and this proclamation. And we really, really appreciate it, because the more we get the word out, the more action we can take, and hopefully something can be done.
And I promise you, we will end gun violence, because we are on the right side of history, and this is going to end. I don't know when, but the more voices that are raised, the more people who join us in this fight, we will end senseless gun violence. I promise you this, we will.
Thank you, Teresa and Fern, and thank you for all that you do. It means so much to our community. It's truly inspiring, and I know firsthand, being in school when the Virginia Tech massacre happened, that gave me pause as a student. And as a college student, I vividly remember being aware of my surroundings in class, whether it's in the atrium or in the cafeteria or in a large lecture hall, and thinking to myself, what do I do if something like this were to happen? And it is incredibly difficult to try to place ourselves in a position where students and teachers, religious leaders and parishioners are faced with this horrible reality of fighting for their lives in a place that should be peaceful and happy. So we stand with you. We're so happy for and thankful for all of your hard work throughout the year. We know it's not just in June. We know, Teresa and Fred have seen you out in our community and throughout the county and the state advocating. And we support all these efforts. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Wilson too.
Thank you, Mayor. It's really good to see you, Teresa and Fern, and thank you to all who are here this evening. I really, really, as you know, appreciate what you guys do, all of it, but especially with education as well as advocacy. So I admire your work. I support your efforts, and I really commend your passion and your commitment. So thank you so much for everything you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other members of the committee wish to say some words?
This is Bud. I'll say some words if it's okay. Teresa, thank you for what you're doing. I absolutely applaud what you're doing. I think you're preaching to the choir here. I think that one of the ways that what we need to do as a nation, because the nation does support, sensible gun laws overwhelmingly, and it is bipartisan. One of the things we need to do is to get rid of the toxic gun culture that we have, and whatever steps we can take to get rid of the toxicity is going to go a long way into reducing gun violence. So that's my 2 cents, and thank you for what you're doing, and I applaud that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, ladies, this is Peter Mancuso, just thanking you so much for your time and your effort and your commitment, because sometimes being in a cause does not always give you the rewards as soon as you'd like to have them happen. But I'm sure that at some juncture, your rewards will be overwhelming. So God bless you both.
Thank you. We keep going.
I just want to say thank you so much to Fern and to Teresa, and mwah, right back at you. And these two women are steadfast in their devotion, step by step, day by day. They do not give up. And thank you so much for being so steadfast day after day, week after week, year after year. And we are with you in the fight.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
Can't hear you.
Testing.
That's better.
Okay, we just went in and out. In closing, thank you, Teresa and Fern, for everything you do. Again, we are so grateful for it. We encourage the public to get involved and to join us in supporting the efforts of Moms Demand Action. So we will now move on to our next agenda item. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And members of the governing body, if I lose audio or if any of us lose audio, please let us know or raise your hand right away so we can keep this meeting running smoothly. Next on the agenda is our first public comment portion. There are currently 23 members of the public joining us on Zoom. At this time, we'll open the meeting for their comments on agenda items only. We request that you reserve any comments on the Route 24 project for later in the meeting when we have a specific public comment and discussion period on that topic. For those wishing to comment now, please state your name and address for the record before speaking. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. If you have any questions you would like answered, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back for this purpose. Is there a motion to open the public comment for members of the governing body?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So please raise your digital hands if you'd like to comment, and we will recognize you. Okay, Mr. Goldberg.
He's coming on. Yeah,
All right.
hi. Am I audible?
Now you are.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just one question on 149-22, the purchase and installation of audio and video recording system for Town Hall, which is a good and welcomed approach to improving things. I was just wondering what the dollar amount is on that. It's listed as zeros.
So we did have an edit to that as of today. We didn't have the final dollar amount from the contractor, and Mr. Quinn is pulling it up right now so we can give you the specific dollar amount. It's about $143,000, and that will be a total upgrade to the committee room as well as our conference room for digital, screen share, and audio upgrades.
Oh, well, thank you for adding some color with the dollar amount. That's an excellent commitment, and it'll be welcome to see it all roll out, and it'll only improve things with communication and for the experience of folks in the committee room when we hopefully get back to being live and in person and for future use. So I'm thrilled to see the township make the commitment to upgrading the infrastructure at Town Hall. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. And yeah, it's going to help with this meeting each month. It's going to help with our volunteer board. It's going to help with our employees and professionals who work here each day. So we want to modernize, and fortunately we have the funds to do that. Yeah, confirm 143. So thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Any other comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the first public comment period?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next item is ordinances for introduction. We have 5
You're
ordinances.
cutting out.
Cut it. All right, you're back in.
Very timely that we just talked about all the upgrades we have to get. Okay, we have 5 ordinances for introduction on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the first ordinance into the record.
Ordinance number 15-22, an ordinance of the Township of Morris, Morris County, New Jersey, establishing salaries and compensation for employees of the Policemen's Benevolent Association, Superior Officers Association, PBA Local 133A of the Township of Morris.
I have a motion to approve ordinance number 15-22 on first reading and schedule for a second reading at the regular Township Committee meeting of July 20th, 2022, please.
So
I'll
moved,
move
Mr.
that
Mayor.
motion. Second.
Any discussion or questions from the committee? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. The public hearing and final consideration and adoption of ordinance number 15-22 will be held at the next regular Township Committee meeting on Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the next ordinance into the record.
Ordinance number 16-22, an ordinance amending ordinance number 06-22, an ordinance of the Township of Morris, County of Morris concerning salaries for non-union personnel to revise compensation / salary range for one position.
I have a motion to approve ordinance number 16-22 on first reading and schedule for a second reading at the regular Township Committee meeting on July 20th, 2022.
So
I'll move
moved.
that motion. Second.
Any discussion or questions from the committee? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Public hearing and final consideration and adoption of ordinance number 16-22 will be held at the next regular Township Committee meeting on Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. The next ordinance is number 17-22. Madam Clerk, can you please read the title of the ordinance into the record?
Ordinance number 17-22, an ordinance of the Township of Morris, Morris County, New Jersey, establishing salaries and compensation for employees of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, local number 469 of the Township of Morris.
I have a motion to approve ordinance number 17-22 on first reading and schedule for a second reading at the regular Township Committee meeting on July 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. The public hearing and final consideration and adoption of ordinance number 17-22 will be held at the next regular township committee meeting on Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Our next ordinance for introduction is 18-22. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the ordinance into the record.
Ordinance number 18-22, an ordinance amending chapter 88 of the Code of the Township of Morris entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 21, Section 88-21, and Schedule A, application of subtitle Title 39 of the revised statutes to certain semi-public or private roads, streets, driveways, and parking areas.
May I have a motion to approve ordinance number 18-22 on first reading and schedule for a second reading at the regular township committee meeting on July 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or question amongst the committee? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. The public hearing and final consideration and adoption of ordinance number 18-22 will be held at the next regular township committee meeting on Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. The last ordinance for introduction is ordinance number 19-22. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the ordinance into the record for us.
Oh, sorry. Ordinance number 19-22, an ordinance authorizing the cancellation of property taxes for disabled veterans.
I have a motion to approve ordinance 19-22 on first reading and schedule for a second reading at the regular township committee meeting on July 20th, 2022.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Public hearing and final consideration and adoption of ordinance number 19-22 will be held at the next regular township committee meeting on Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Moving on to resolutions for the evening. We have several on tonight's agenda. One resolution has been added since the agenda was published, which is resolution number 150-22. That's correct, right? Still, or do we have another? Do we have two?
That's it, man.
Okay. And this is 150-22 is pertaining to a tax settlement between Morristown SG LLC, CO China Construction, and the Township of Morris. Before we get into voting, I did want to strip resolution 141-22 to vote separately, as it is related to the fire department, and I will be abstaining. So then, may I have a motion to vote on resolution numbers 117-22 through 140-22 and 142-22 through 150-22 by one motion.
I'm sorry, Mark, just to interrupt, this is Danielle speaking. I just wanted to point out what we discussed before regarding BIS Digital. It was published without the amount number in it, but we did receive the vendor quote, and that full amount is $143,119.30.
Thank you for clarifying that. So then, again, is there a motion, or can I have a first and a second on voting in those two blocks by one motion and voting on 141-22 separately?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so then I now have a motion to approve resolutions 117-22 to 140-22 and 142-22 through 150-22.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Wilson, would you mind handling 141-22 for me?
Sure. May I have a motion to pass resolution 141-22?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call. Oh, was there any discussion on that? Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mancuso,
Yes,
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson. And just like that, we're on to our next public comment period. I did want to just provide an overview before we commence that. So we are having a special public comment period, as we discussed at last month's meeting, specific to the Route 24 proposal from the county. As with the other public comments, we ask that members of the public keep their comments to 5 minutes. Depending on how many commenters we have tonight, we're going to stick to 1 comment each, and then if we do have some time, we will open it up to a second round. But as of now, we're going to stick to the first round. After we have the public comment, I will then participate with the rest of the governing body to discuss the proposal and discuss the comments from the public. And then we plan to not have a vote on this until July. As members of the public may know, the county is looking for support from the 4 municipalities that are directly impacted by this project. 2 of those municipalities have passed resolutions of support already. However, understanding the direct impact that this proposal would have on our residents, we felt that it was best to ensure our governing body has enough time to not only think and study the comments and suggestions from members of the public that are going to be provided tonight, but also from the comment periods with the county public information session, which I believe we all have watched the recording of or watched it live. And also we heard some comments last meeting, as well as received emails and other communications from residents directly. So because we understand the significance of this proposal, we have wanted to make sure our residents are provided adequate opportunity to provide their comments on this. Because as they have as everyone well knows, this will not only impact us for a short period of time, but for a long period of time. So with that, we will open the public comments. I see some hands raised. If you have not raised them already, please raise your digital hands. We do have a 1 phone caller. So what is the command on a phone to raise your hand? I think it's *6. *6. So if you're on the phone, you can type in *6 to raise your hand, and we'll recognize you. So I believe Mr. Goldberg is first. Is that correct?
No, Thomas
No,
Kelly.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Thomas-
Goldberg. No, Mr.
Thomas
Kelly is
Kelly.
first.
Thomas Kelly.
So Thomas Kelly, you're good to go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sorry for the background noise. I'm at work at the firehouse right now. I want to thank the committee members for having this meeting tonight. And I just want to ask that the committee members take these following talking points into consideration when reviewing the preliminary preferred alternative and establish their position in this. I have about 8 or 9 points that I'd like the members
Kelly,
to take.
just before you get into, you just for the record, just state your address.
I'm sorry, Thomas Kelly, 11 Arrowhead Road. My first talking point is, why was the ramp moved from the original location? My second talking point is, has anyone talked to the resident at 215 Park Avenue? They are greatly inconvenienced by this, and I have not heard them on any of these calls, and they are a township resident, and they would be greatly impacted, and I think that adds to the price of this project. My third talking point is the proposed ramp, in addition of 2 new traffic lanes, is now 10 yards from the intersection of Delaware Road and Park Avenue. This proposal would greatly increase the cut through traffic. If I ask the members when they review the DOT's concept video, stop the YouTube minutes at 4:28 and see where that arrow stops. According to the DOT data, over 8,000 vehicles will be exiting that ramp daily. So that leads me to my next talking point is there has been documented cut-through issues that my neighborhood has been dealing with both police departments. I actually have a traffic study from Florham Park, which I received from the chief of police, that was conducted in 2016. The funny thing that I looked at the dates on this is it was conducted starting on Thanksgiving, following through the next week. So there, I emailed this to Chris Vitz, and he was very surprised to see this data as well. The peak volume in one direction is 33 vehicles per hour, but what stood out in the one direction is on Thanksgiving week, when this data was taken, almost 1,700 vehicles traveled one direction through Delaware Road. I think that's something that the committee should seriously take into consideration, considering the burden that this neighborhood deals with. Another talking point is now the legal counsel that is represented from the office park, further delaying this issue. I want the committee to form an opinion on how does the committee feel that every other town involved in this process, Madison, Chatham, Florham Park, and Hanover, have avoided this ramp issue in their towns, and yet they want Morris Township to receive all the burden. These towns fought tooth and nail for their residents to avoid this ramp issue. Now they want us to accept it. I'm going to finish with something that comes out of the DOT's Smart Solutions study. This is I'm referencing the summary of findings on page 7 and this quote on page 11. Based on the results of these studies, the Office of Value of Engineering finds that the traffic congestion issue at Columbia Turnpike and Park Avenue is not due to the ramps off of 24, but rather due to the local business development in the vicinity of the Jets training facility off Park Avenue that drew high number of traffic to this location. The department will analyze the cost benefit of these improvements. However, the analysis showed that any of these improvements will have a short-term improvement that lasts approximately 5 years. This is the DOT's own study saying that this plan will not last more than 5 years. Why move forward with this project when we are receiving all the burden as Morris Township, and all these other towns through the rumor mill have been avoiding this? And let's push it off on them and let their residents deal with this. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for taking the time to talk with us now, for your insightful documents that you've sent over and through email as well, and also for your service as a first responder. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Next we have Mrs. Jacqueline Chapman. Jackie, if you can hear me, you should be good to go.
Now I've connected. Yes, thank you. I'm Jacqueline Chapman. We're at 14 Nast Road in Columbia Park. Nast Road is the road that is parallel, that overlooks Park Avenue, the hotel, and the new building that supposedly will be positioned right across from us that will have 220 units. I'm mentioning this. I agree with all of the points that the previous caller made, but we need to think about how it impacts us. On Nast Road, we are directly on Prescott. So we're Nast Road, Prescott, Columbia Road. We are right there in that whole area. Traffic will be increased, 1. 2, there will be, I'm sure, increased pass-through through Prescott. There will be the additional light. I see no reason to put 3 lights there in a row when you say that there's a problem that's existing at Columbia and Park, but you move the problem down the road, but not all the way down the road to the areas where really have will incur the most traffic, will cause the most traffic. It seems to me that people will take a U-turn possibly through Columbia Pike, through Columbia Park. But our biggest concern is we will bear the brunt of Park Avenue, the cut through Prescott, the new light, the turns, the additional traffic, period. So I would say a definite no. I would hope that the committee would vote no on this, because when you think about how the traffic will be moving, it just causes, to me, it just causes a new problem. And in fact, a larger problem for us in Morris Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chapman, for joining us tonight.
Can you?
Did Mr. Goldberg have his hand raised or?
Can't hear you, Mr. Mayor.
I can hear you, Mark.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you, Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. Thank you for allocating this time to discuss, as you said, this important issue here this evening. I want to thank Mr. Kelly and Mr. Chapman for their comments. I was a little, although living in the Arrowhead, Delaware neighborhood, we've seen the cut-through traffic increase tremendously over the 24 years I've been here. And you know, but I'm a little taken aback at the numbers from the police report traffic study that he did indicate. So hopefully he can share that and get that over to the Township Committee for review and assessment as part of sort of a holistic look at this. You know, my main comment is I would really like to think that this Township Committee, our elected officials here, will take a hard look at this. I'm sure you've all traversed and are familiar with that intersection. It's been a failed intersection for many years. This ramp, in my opinion, is not doing anything to solve or get the traffic off of Park Avenue. And for years and years, we've heard about the Campus Drive solution, and it's always been sort of, you know, sort of just squashed or put down as to why it's not possible. There's been some talk of wetlands, maybe a spotted turtle in there at some point over the last 25 years that would prevent the construction of a ramp through there. But that's really where a lot of the traffic is coming from. So, you know, the ramp, you know, there's many that would think that the ramp should be placed closer to that, you know, those office parks that are generating all this traffic. So I know our elected officials, this committee, are all very intelligent, reasonable folks and have a lot to consider when looking at this, but would really appreciate it if, to Mr. Kelly's point of view, could stand up for the residents of Morris Township. And a number of towns have been successful. Kudos to them over the years for kicking the can down the road on this. But to his point and others' points is why should Morris Township bear the brunt of this, especially if it's going to only maybe minimally address some of the issues that are going on there. And also just please keep in mind, as I know you're aware, of the 220 unit 5-story apartment complex, which is going literally right next door to the exit ramp. So there's some unforeseen and even consequences that may come from that aren't even known at this point. So just want you to take all of these points into consideration as you deliberate potentially supporting a resolution for this. I'm here tonight to ask you to please not support this and not pass a resolution in favor of it. And also, I'm looking forward to hearing from each of my Township Committee members when we get to the portion now where you're going to discuss it on why individually you would think this is a good idea or bad idea, and get some of your thought processes on this ramp. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Any further comments from the public? Please raise your digital hand.
Can't hear you, Mark.
I'm sorry, Mayor, but we really can't hear you.
If you have any other members of the public, could raise your hand, please, if you have further comments. And I will speak hunched over like this for the rest of the meeting. Okay. There are no further hands up. For the individuals who have commented, I will allow another 2 minutes if you wish to follow up. If not, we will discuss as a governing body. Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public portion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, members of the public, for joining us. I know we do have a good amount of people on from the area, and we certainly appreciate all the comments that you've provided to members of the governing body, like I said earlier, whether it was through email, phone calls, visits, other public information sessions, or other public comment periods. I did think it was important, and I think the rest of the committee agreed, that we discuss this in public session before voting. And we have kind of made it a best practice here on the Township Committee when voting on issues of significance, especially as it relates to development. And I know this isn't development in terms of commercial or residential, but it is development in terms of construction on a busy corridor directly abutting our residents. So with that in mind, we have set the best practice to not vote on the same evening of a public discussion on the topic. So we have decided to move that to July. Tonight, I'm not encouraging members of the governing body to talk in definitives. I'm just looking for us to have an open discussion, discuss pros and cons, and discuss our personal feelings on the issue where, things we like about the project, what we don't. And if any further comments are wish to be provided, I'm open, we're all open to that. So to kick us off for the committee, and then we'll kind of go one by one, and we'll try to navigate the challenges of being virtual here so we're not stepping on each other's toes. But it's obvious that there are significant concerns with this project, but it's also obvious that there are significant issues along Park Avenue that have to be addressed. And I'm not reading off of comments, I'm just reading from, or talking from, what I truly believe. Doing nothing is not going to satisfy anything. However, the concerns that are brought up by our residents are accurate, and I think for me personally, having the assurances from the county, should we support this, to address some of these issues are absolutely paramount. We cannot do the disservice to our residents of turning a blind eye to what will be directly impacting them each and every day. With that, I will state that with a resolution being passed, we aren't talking in definitives, we're talking about allowing the county or supporting the county to get the funds to then move the process forward with engineering work. And it would be my hope, and I wouldn't support this if we don't have that expectation from the county, is for them to be working directly with our residents right along the corridor to address their concerns, whether it is cut through traffic on Delaware, whether it's cut through traffic on Prescott, and including a median to prevent that from happening. I get that, and that is a concern to me. I do have hesitations in terms of that cut through traffic. But one thing I do think is positive is reducing the collisions at the intersection. I think reducing traffic wait times and the pollution that comes from that is a positive. And to me, we have to make sure we're taking into account the considerations of the broader community as well. The folks that will be traveling on Park Avenue or commuting on 24, not now, but 10 years from now when this project would likely be done should it move forward, and 10 years after that. So to me, there's a lot of pros and cons. I think the rest of the body feels similarly. So I don't want to keep talking. I have more to say, but I can bring it up later on. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Wilson since she's here in person. And then after that, we'll, if actually Bud, Tara, and Peter, if you can just raise your hands, and by that order, we'll call on you to go.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just first check to see if my audio is audible.
You're fine.
Okay, good, thanks. First off, I'd like to request if Tom Kelly could send me a copy of that traffic study you referenced with the 1,700 cars. I have not seen that one, and I would be interested to look at that. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, reading it, talking with residents, visiting the site, talking with county people, talking with our professionals, and I'm on the fence right now. I see things on both sides. One thing I want to clarify here tonight, what we are and are not voting on next month when we do take a vote, we are not voting to approve or not approve this project in its present form, we are being asked by the county to approve a resolution that would open the door to federal dollars that might be available to proceed with the next step in the process, which would be preliminary engineering. So that whole process of getting from where we are now, which is a very initial early concept plan, to the full project completion would involve a lot of different steps along the way, and it would take many years. They're telling us 5 to 7 years, if not more, to complete. So the specific action that we're being asked to approve is supporting moving this proposal to the next phase, which is preliminary engineering. My thought process on support and not support, on the not support side, the argument of why should our residents bear the brunt of a solution that nobody wants in their town just because it's the only remaining solution. That holds weight for me. In my opinion, I think we all know that it would have been better to have an exit off of 24 somewhere between the Short Hills Mall and Columbia. And the reason we don't have that is because the residents in other towns successfully blocked that. And the fact is, nobody wants that kind of thing in their town. And so for us, our residents to not want it, I agree with that. That's persuasive to me. And there are problems that we can anticipate, cut through traffic, people wanting to make turnarounds. I agree with that. So that's one part of my thinking. Another part is that this bothers me too. This proposal does nothing to address the real root of the problem, which is that we've got too many cars on the road. Too many people getting to their destinations by driving in their own individual vehicles. This proposal would open the door to increasing the volume of cars on the road, and I'm not in favor of that outcome. So I do see an opportunity here for the 4 towns, the 4 surrounding towns, Hanover, Madison, Florham Park, and us, to work together in ways that focus on that bigger problem that's plaguing all of us, which is what can we do to decrease the number of cars on the road? And what can we do to encourage alternative modes of travel, like walking, like carpooling, like shuttles, for example? I can imagine us working together and coming up with solutions that nobody's thought of before because nobody's ever talked about it before. And to me, this is a key issue that needs to be part of the mix as we work with this situation. On the other side of the equation, some positives I see. This proposal does not cure the congestion at Park and Columbia, but it definitely does lead to significant reductions in wait times and turn times. And getting those numbers has been new information for me. And that's had a significant influence on how I feel about this project. For example, some of the reductions include going from 418 seconds to 72 seconds, from 274 seconds to 82 seconds. If these are accurate, they're significant. And there's also, with the reduction in wait time, a corresponding reduction in emissions. So I see that as a positive also. I think there is a safety benefit here. The collisions that have been caused by the weaving problem on Columbia between the Route 24 exit and the left turn on Park, that should decrease. And I would say also that I have grown actually to have faith in the decision-making process that the county is leading and that was started by DOT. I really do see that there's a big emphasis on public participation, getting clear on what people's concerns are and working, hard to address those concerns and to come up with options for addressing them. So those are some of the considerations that I'm thinking about. I have not decided what my vote is going to be, but that's some of my thought process. And I do see Mr. Slate here. I do have one question that perhaps you can answer, Mr. Quinn. I don't know. As moving from where we are now to the final project, lots of steps along the way. And it is my understanding that each step along the way requires its own application for further funding. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with.
You don't know that? I thought I heard Chris Vitz say that in the.
I don't recall. I know that what they're looking for is the initial funding so they can start the engineering work. And that's what they're hoping to get from the federal government through infrastructure if the four municipalities are in agreement to move forward.
Right.
To get the funding, and that's really what the resolution is, to get the initial funding, but I think there's going to be additional funding that will be coming from other sources also. But I can check with Mr. Vitz on that question.
I would like to know that. That's important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to turn to Mr. Mancuso now because I believe he had quite the experience getting involved in Route 24 when it was first proposed and constructed. So, Mr. Mancuso, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. I have a few comments, and I find it to be a conundrum when it comes to making a total decision on this. There are very good points on either side, and the concern that I have is I think we have the ability to, when we and the other three townships approve this, to have the $25 million or whatever the number is allocated. And then we have, there is, from what I can understand, there is time for a discussion of the next step. And I think that's one of the most important things. Any decision like this, that's not a moral decision, needs to be thought through very, very carefully. And we have to decide in our own hearts and our own minds as to what is best for the majority of citizens. It's always good, though, to have all of our members on the same page as we discuss this, and to keep it from being in any way a political decision. The engineering work, once the funds are allocated, we have the opportunity, as does the engineering departments, to make the best of what this situation is. It's not going to please everybody. It's not going to please everybody. I was at the first meeting when this was promulgated back in 2017, and the four potential solutions were all promoted and spoken through. And there's lots of room for improvement on either side. I think we have a full month to discuss this with each other, with the engineers, with Mr. Quinn, and both Mr. Quinn and Mr. Slate are very, very, very plugged in and totally understanding of this. And I would like to, at some juncture, maybe have them put their thought process into this. As you said in the beginning, Mayor, just to go, just to switch thought processes. I was elected back in 1977, I guess, because there was a major group which held up or wanted to hold up the inclusion of Route 24 through Morris Township. And there was a lot of hue and cry about it. And we through our own offices were able to speak with DOT and keep it on their back burner. And then at one juncture, I went to most of the homeowners groups, and there was not the opposition that I had initially encountered. And that was when the Township Committee approved of the road going through. I think when, as and if this does come to fruition, it probably is a 5 to 7 year project. And I think we have time to input all the thought processes we can into it, because I think it's just not a decision, let's do it, let's not do it. I think we have lots of interesting things to discuss. I may have more later, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Mr. Ravitz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a tough one, for sure. First, I want to thank Mr. Goldberg, Mr. Kelly, and Ms. Chapman for their input. It was well thought out, well articulated, and well received. I had the pleasure to be on the initial call that the county had with residents of all the towns, and I got to tell you, I think the county engineer did a good job, as good as he could have, in explaining what was going on. I think that a lot of the feedback was completely legitimate. I have to be honest, I am skeptical on some of the numbers. In terms of reducing waiting time. I am very cognizant of the issues of cut through traffic and folks making U-turns. On the other side, the time to have done this was in the beginning, as the mayor mentioned and the deputy mayor mentioned, but that's not an option now. Moving wetlands is not an option now. So we're kind of stuck with what this is. But I think, in echoing the words of what the mayor said, this is not the final resolution. What we're going to vote on is just the next steps. So the thing that concerns me, and I on the positive side, is redirecting the off ramp off 24, so people don't have the short distance to move over to make the left turn onto Park Avenue. I think that in itself is a very good thing. Where the ramp is placed, there's not a lot of opportunity to move it here or there or down the road, but there is opportunity for further resident input to mitigate some of the concerns. And is this going to be money well spent? I don't know. I mean, this project will probably come in a lot more expensive than it's forecast to be. It'll probably be delayed. The savings on wait time, I think I'm a little skeptical on, especially as we're seeing high density housing being built on that corner in the interim time, only adding to increased traffic. So I'm wrestling with, are we solving a problem? And if we are solving a problem, how long will this problem be solved for? So it's a real tough issue. And as my colleague, Mr. Mancuso, has said, this is something that is not going to please everybody, but we're going to have to look at the bigger picture here. It's not going to cost our taxpayers, in this case, because this is going to be dollars that are not coming out of our pocket. But the real question is this money well spent, or can it be money that can be allocated for something better? But that's not for us to decide, on the governing body. we're just going to decide whether, does this solve a problem? And if it does, for how long? And then what does the future hold? And I don't think any of us here know that. And we're all suffering from a lack of knowing what we don't know, or not knowing what we don't know, and kind of making a decision in the dark with this, and kind of guessing what it's going to be like in 5, 7, 10 years down the road. And, you know, and folks after us having to live with the ramifications of our decisions. So a lot of thinking has to go into this. Rest assured that, you know, we're not going to please everybody no matter what we do. So, you know, I'll reserve the right to comment, you know, as we go around again, but that's kind of where my thought is on this right now.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitz. Ms. Olivo-Moore.
Hi. So I'm probably going to be repetitive, but here's how I understand things. What I've heard people say so far is that there's definitely an issue with fairness between the different towns, that traffic congestion is something people are very worried about. They're worried for Park Avenue, where traffic congestion is already bad. They're worried about their own neighborhoods. Cut through in the Arrowhead neighborhood is already bad. They're worried about it getting worse. I've heard numerous times that this isn't really a solution to the existing problem, because the DOT Smart Solution says it might solve the problem for up to 5 years, but probably not beyond that. And yet building the ramp is going to be a permanent fixture in the landscape. So that seems like it's an issue. And as Bud rightly mentioned, nobody knows what the future actually looks like. I have been very surprised over the past few years to find out that I could not predict the future with anything approaching accuracy. And that has been a lesson in humility for me. So I definitely hear what people are saying. They're very concerned about how wise this project is, and they are asking us to really examine the project and see whether it really solves the problem that it's intended to solve. And certainly it seems like it might cause problems for these residents and their neighborhoods. On the other hand, the stretch of roadway where the problem exists, where people are getting off of Route 24 to get onto Columbia and then potentially turn left onto Park Avenue, that stretch of roadway is an absolute nightmare. As far as I know, people haven't died there yet, but to me, it looks like not just an accident waiting to happen, but a fatal accident waiting to happen. As someone who, as many of you know, I'm a nurse, and so I think of things in terms of nursing and safety. To me, this seems like it's giving chemotherapy to a cancer patient. Chemotherapy is a poison, but you prevent death with it, you hope. So this particular project is a project intended to avert traffic deaths, but it has the potential to poison this other neighborhood. So my concern is, what can we do for the neighborhoods that are already experiencing issues with traffic and cut-throughs, to help mitigate that? And is there some other way to approach this? I think a vote against the project is a vote in favor of the status quo, and I don't think the status quo is acceptable either. And so this is, as everybody has indicated, this is a very difficult issue, and one that I am struggling with.
Thank you, Ms. Olivo-Moore. Well said and articulated. The same goes with every other member of the governing body. I did want to just focus on one thing, and Tari kind of mentioned it, is what do we do? What happens if we do nothing? We've talked about all these other towns blocking ramps on Route 24 that, you know, that happened decades ago. Morris Township, I know, Peter, you talked about it, but, you know, 24 was supposed to go totally through Morris Township, you know, out by Streeter Pool, and that was blocked by the township. But to me, you know, we can talk about who's to blame for why we have this issue, It could be Madison and Chatham and all those towns not having their own exit ramps. That's in the past. It could be development is the problem. We all know development's the problem. We've all talked about it for so many years here, but we're not gonna be able to get rid of that development. The cars are there. And we can try to promote bicycling and taking buses, which we have, but you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say most of our residents or most people living on Park Avenue probably aren't gonna be taking buses in the near future. So what do we do between now and the next 10 years? And to me, leaving things as the status quo, it doesn't solve anything. The traffic's only gonna get worse. As we've known through the public information session with Chris Fitz talking, you know, I think we all agree we'd rather have this on Campus Drive. The problem is that that's not gonna happen either. So what's worse, keeping it the same or moving the ramp, hoping or trusting the numbers that it's actually going to reduce the waiting times and the traffic times, reduce the amount of crashes at the intersection. And I understand the frustrations that other towns have blocked this. And to be fair, Morris Township blocked a huge chunk of Route 24 back in the day. And kudos to those members of the governing body back then for blocking the whole town being torn in half by Route 24. But I think when we're deliberating or thinking about this, we can't say, well, if there wasn't development, this wouldn't be a problem, because it's here. That's a fact. So I'd like us to focus on, you know, the other pros and cons. So any further comments from members of the committee?
Yes, I have one further comment, Mayor. That makes me think of the sustainable land use pledge that we just passed in April. And the first pledge we made, the first bullet point on that pledge was a commitment to regional collaboration. And many of us have been advocating for years the need for the towns to work together. Development, traffic, these things do not obey municipal boundaries. They have repercussions and outcomes that go beyond municipal boundaries. And it's such a clear need for the towns to be communicating with each other and working together, identifying what the problems are and looking for new ways to address them. And I just think that's so important. And I see this as an opportunity to really push for that. Something we've wanted for a long time and something that's clearly needed. So just putting that on the table as well.
No, and I agree. I know we have assurances from the county to have annual meetings, and we can certainly have regional discussions. I know that's a passionate project of yours, Deputy Mayor, and it's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's what we need. But the problem is that's forward-looking. We're dealing with what has come from not having that for all these years. And that's the problem we're trying to at least mitigate right now. Anyone? Bud, Tara, Peter, I see Bud's hand up, but I can't see Peter.
I just want to, I think you hit on a key point. And I think a few of us touched on it. It's, you know, the cost of doing nothing. This solution, I don't love it. There's just a lot not to like about it. There's some things to like about it, but the cost of doing nothing is really, I think, putting a burden on the future residents and the future governing body. You know, kicking the can down the road is not a good solution. I think leaving this for another governing body is something we don't want to do. I think this governing body needs to put a stake in the ground. I think that from what I heard from the county engineer is that they're very willing to, you know, work with the affected residents to come up with solutions, traffic calming, whatever it is. But again, I think moving forward in some way is preferable to doing nothing. And as my colleague Tara had said, you know, there is a fatality waiting to happen there at some point, and how many people need to be injured or die for a governing body to finally take action. And that kind of goes back to, you know, a lot of other issues that governing bodies, whether they're local, state, or federal, face, the cost of doing nothing. So if the county is going to work with us, with the residents to mitigate as many of the problems as they can, then, we might be able to have a good substantive discussion of what the future might look like.
Mhm. Kathy was talking about this, Peter. Kathy was talking about the cooperation from other towns. And without starting a controversy, the practice of saying, well, you know what, as long as we don't have to face it or worry about having it as part of our town or contiguous to it, it's probably something we can just put off for the future or some other time. I think one of the clearest things I heard was when Tara said a vote against is a vote for keeping a status quo. But that's the conundrum, and that's the thing that we have got to figure out over the next 4 or 5 weeks to see whether or not a vote against is a vote for keeping the status quo.
Thank you, Peter. Any other further comments?
And here, Mark.
I said thanks, Peter. Any other further comments from the committee? Okay, so
No, I'm good.
thank you. So we're not voting on this tonight. We're continuing to deliberate. We're not taking a final stance on this. And I would encourage members of the governing body to continue discussions, which I'm confident we will. I'm confident that members of the committee will be meeting with our professionals and continuing to speak with residents in the affected area. I'm sure we'll have more follow-ups with the county for clarification purposes as well. And we will take this back up at our July meeting. So with that, I will then move to the next item on the agenda, unless any other members of the committee have further comments. Okay, consent calendar. We have 10 items on the consent calendar this evening. We need to add one employee to consent item number 9, which is Greg Sims. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consideration of monthly reports. We have received reports from the Finance, Fire, Joint Court, and Police departments for April 2022. We have received reports from the Library and Tax Collector for May 2022, sorry. Can I have a motion to approve these monthly reports, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, claims for payment. Total amount of bills and vouchers for this meeting is $11,902,237.46. As a reminder to the public, we are also the tax collector for the school district, the library, and the county of Morris. May I please have a motion to approve the list of bills and vouchers?
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. All right, we'll move into standing committee reports and commentary by the Township Committee. And I will turn it over to Ms. Olivo-Moore to start us off tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So the sewer and the DPW, which are my areas of concern, continue to operate smoothly. And I would like to thank all of the employees of the sewer utility and the DPW for their hard work. As we move into summer, I know that their work gets hot and more uncomfortable, so I thank them for that. My gratitude goes out, and my gratitude and congratulations go out to Police Chief Mark DiCarlo for his many years of dedicated service to our town and its people. Congratulations, especially now, to Captain Robert Shearer, who is now the acting police chief, who will officially become our new police chief on July 1st. I would also like to offer congratulations to Kyle Meyer, a new firefighter who will be joining the department on July 4th. And congratulations also to Taylor Nelson, who will be joining our police force on July 11th. Congratulations also to the many new high school graduates in Morris Township, and especially those that I saw at the Morristown High School awards ceremony yesterday. I saw many impressive, hardworking, and caring young people, including one young person who will be entering the Naval Academy and one young person who will be entering West Point. Congratulations to all. And as many, many, many of our tax dollars in Morris Township go towards the Morris School District, it was wonderful to see that they are put to wonderful use for all those wonderful young people who are going to go out and do wonderful things in the world. And now I'm going to stop using the word wonderful. All right, so this month we have talked a lot about gun violence and Pride Month and Juneteenth. And these three things may seem unrelated, but to me, they are intimately connected. Freedom is three things: the ability to go where you want, do what you want, and change social relationships when you need to. By contrast, political domination is three things: the use of violence or sovereignty, the use of secrets or bureaucracy, and the third thing is charisma, the use of charisma. When you have all three of those things joined together, the people under that jurisdiction are in big trouble. So how do those things connect? So gun violence is the use of violence at a distance in order to potentially force people to do what you want. A nation state only has sovereignty insofar as that nation state is able to have legitimate monopoly over violence within its borders. Every time someone uses a gun and goes and shoots up a school or a church or a synagogue or a Walmart or a grocery store or wherever, they are undermining the sovereignty of our American nation state. And that is intolerable to me. So, you know, after the shootings in Parkland, Florida in 2018, I realized how afraid my children were of school shooters. My daughter told me at that time that everywhere she went in school at Morristown High School, she imagined how to hide and if there was a good place to hide. And she imagined how she might feel if her friends died, but she survived. And because of that, I got involved with Fern and Teresa that we saw earlier today in Moms Demand Action. They are two of the most wonderful people I know. And there, I did it again. I used the word wonderful. So anyway, that brings me to Pride Month. Another thing I feel very strongly about. In America, when we talk a lot about freedom, but there is a lot of conformity. Until pretty recently, people who did not conform to the heterosexual norms could not go where they wanted unless they pretended. Pretending to be straight is essentially obeying a certain kind of unspoken order. And after many years and decades of dedicated actions, the LGBTQ movement has changed social relations. And that makes us all freer to be who we are. And I am so glad that Juneteenth is observed in Morris Township. Many employees and residents of the township will get the day off, and others will get extra pay if they can't get the day off. But that is not what the day is about. Juneteenth is a celebration of emancipation. It is a day on which many African Americans remember and celebrate the end of slavery and a new beginning. For every other American, it commemorates a new American founding and a hope that every time we recognize an injustice, we can change it. When their descendants tried to celebrate this day, African Americans were often banned from public spaces. If they wanted to celebrate in private, there was redlining to prevent them from finding reasonable housing in a safe neighborhood. So that brings us back to the three freedoms I spoke of earlier: the freedom to go where you want, do what you want, and change social relations. And yet, since that time, African Americans and people who are part of the LGBTQ movement have changed where they can go, what they can do, and how we relate to one another. And for that, I celebrate all of them, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara, for those wonderfully put comments. Mr. Ravitz.
I was afraid you were going to follow that one. Thank you, Tara. Those words were really, I would say wonderful, but you used them too many times. Thoughtful and insightful. So thank you very much for that. I completely concur. My standing committee reports, there's nothing really substantive to report on infrastructure. For the Parks and Rec, I can happy to report that we've exceeded 2,000 categorical members, which represents just over 6,000 individuals. In comparison, last year on this date, on this date, we had 1,675 categorical members representing almost 5,100 individuals. So membership at the pools is way up. We have blown through our revenue projections. We are thrilled with that. Making the pools self-sustaining in terms of operating revenue has been a big issue with me, and we are there. So I'm thrilled with that. Last Saturday, I was privileged to walk the Jones Woods Trail with a couple other people from the governing body. It was a nearly 2-mile trail and a great hike, even for beginners. Lots of wonderful views. And for those who aren't aware, the township has an extensive trail system, and you owe it to yourself to check out some of those trails. And I know you'll be glad you did. As always, there are numerous township-wide volunteer and scout park projects and opportunities. Check out the Parks and Rec website for what opportunities are available. And we are still looking for assistant managers and lifeguards at the pools. So if you or anybody you know is looking for a part-time summer job, we would love to see you at either Ginty or Streeter Pools. On the fire standing committee, congratulations to our newest full-time firefighter, Kyle Meyer, echoing again what my colleague had said, and welcome aboard to Jacob Schneider, who is the newest volunteer firefighter. And I want to thank you both for your dedication and service to the community. That brings me to my commentary.
Mr. Ravitz?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Ravitz. I just wanted to, did you want to highlight resolution 117-22 for Collinsville and Tucker Park for the planner, since for Parks?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, I do. Thank you for bringing that up. We have hired a consulting firm as of tonight to look at our parks at Collinsville and Tucker Field and look at them together jointly as to what we're looking for the future in a park. And we're hoping to have, town halls at Collinsville with residents to find out what it is that they're looking for, that they want to see in a park, not just for the Collinsville residents, but residents for the marketplace and whatnot, because this is a park that we think can be a showcase park for our community. And we want to make sure that we have the right features and services for the park, for the residents for the next, 10, 15, 20 years. So thank you, Mayor, for reminding me of that. And again, that brings me to my commentary for this evening, and I'll start off as I always do. And thank you all for your participation in local community government. National politics may get the spotlight, but it's what we do here locally that has the biggest economic impact and quality of life impact on our lives. I also want to thank the residents who took time from their busy day to vote in the primary election. Voting is our right, and one where generations past fought and died for. And it's what makes democracy successful. So thank you for voting. On June 7th, the Department of Homeland Security issued a national terrorism advisory bulletin that Americans should be on a heightened alert for their safety until about November 30th of this year. Events taking place between now and then may serve as a catalyst for domestic terrorism. Not foreign groups or terrorists, domestic, our fellow Americans. Racism, xenophobia, the House Select Committee hearings on the January 6th, 2021 coup attempt, SCOTUS decisions that will be coming down, and of course, the midterm election results all can be catalysts for violence by Americans upon Americans. The bulletin also points out how hostile foreign nations are amplifying conspiracy theories that might also act as catalysts. These are often the same conspiracy theories that some Americans echo on social media. This is something I've talked about many times in my commentary. It may seem harmless, but the reality is that it's anything but harmless. Consider what might be echoed on social media is exactly the same thing that hostile foreign nations would like to see, nations that would like to see the demise of America, our democracy, and the rule of law are themselves amplifying. It certainly doesn't help when domestic personalities, influencers, groups, organizations, and some media outlets pass along the same conspiracy theories to an audience that wants to believe that is true, even at the expense of what they see around them. And I end, as I always do, with this. New restrictive laws in many states aim to discriminate or penalize certain demographic segments of our population. Let's keep in mind that no one is looking for special treatment, but rather equal protections under the law. Equal protections for all does not infringe upon or diminish the rights of any of us. Let's not marginalize the people who have less political or economic power as some of us might now enjoy. Rather, let's face up to and stand up to those who continue to profit from our division. Those profiteers are the source of the nation's problems. We have more in common than should ever divide us. But we have to relearn how to talk to each other and not at each other. Amplifying misinformation and hateful rhetoric plays right into the hands of America's enemies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitz. Mr. Mancuso.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure Ms. Wilson will have some more to say, but we had a resignation on the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and I spoke to a young lady named Mary Vole, who I was incredibly impressed with. Kathy had recommended her, and we are adding her to our group. It's on the agenda for this week. I'd also like to congratulate Mr. Quinn and Mr. Prushanowski for settling with the PBA Superior Officers Association and the Teamsters. We still have a way to go, but they are doing a very, very difficult job in a time when we were holding to 2% raises for all of our unions every year, and they're working very, very hard to ameliorate the new levels. Tara, I just wanted to mention to you that I think resolution number 2022 is probably one of the more important things we've done, authorizing execution of a special agreement of 2 years for special law enforcement officers, class 3 with the Morris School District. Having 2 grandchildren in the Morris School District, I can't imagine there's anything that we are doing that's better to prevent some sort of a violent attack in any form or any sort. Resolution number 13422, that we did already, I'm sorry. We're appointing we met the police committee, and we are appointing Taylor Nelson as a probationary police officer to the Morris Township Police Department effective July 11th. We have great thought processes about the probability of where she will be down the road as far as part of our organization here. I have just great words for the Mark DeCarlo's retirement as chief. I've worked with him for several years, and I have not found a better person to deal with as far as understanding and knowing what's going on. And I am incredibly happy at having a person like Ravitz, who is going to take over as chief of police for the Morris Township Police Department. We are very, very lucky, and there'll be much more said about that when it comes to the point of swearing them in and having a formal goodbye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two standing committee reports, beginning first with environment. As always, our EC has a lot of projects in progress. I'll highlight just two. We were recently notified that our Environmental Commission was awarded a $1,000 grant from ANJAC, the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions. This grant will fund the planting of a model pollinator garden in Butterworth. Our EC will work together with Parks and Rec to build this garden by the spring of 2023. This project brings a lot of benefits to our community, including creating a habitat for pollinators, provides education on biodiversity, helps to build a community of people who are native plant advocates, demonstrates the feasibility of replacing grass lawns with native plants, and visually enhances the park by providing botanical color and variety. This garden was, and the grant idea was the brainchild of EC member Charlie Shatner. Special thanks to him and also to the EC chair, Brian Morgan, for all the work they've done and will no doubt continue to do to move this project forward to completion next spring. On the newsletter, I want to take this opportunity, as I frequently do, to encourage everyone to sign up for our EC newsletter. It's packed with great information that you can use for your own lawn and garden, and it's a great way to keep informed on everything that's going on here in Morris Township and with our EC, which there's a lot going on. You can subscribe to the newsletter by going to the EC page on the Township's website. I also want to comment on our Transportation Standing Committee. Tonight we passed a resolution supporting complete streets. The resolution that we passed this evening serves a couple of purposes. It explains the meaning and it recognizes the value of using a complete streets approach as we make transportation decisions in our town. It also commits us to creating a written complete streets policy by next April 2023. The Transportation Advisory Committee's push to create a complete streets policy stems from one of its most important founding purposes, which is developing ways to improve walking, biking, driving, and parking in our town. The key idea of complete streets is that our roads are a public resource, not just for cars, but for everyone, including pedestrians and bicyclists, and that we need to keep the full range of users in mind as we work with road reconstruction projects. My sense is that for the most part, we already do this, but we don't have a written policy that describes what we do. There are benefits to having a written policy. It opens up new grant funding possibilities, some of which can be pretty significant, and it builds transparency and helps the public understand why and how decisions are made. Developing a complete streets policy also connects with our efforts to obtain certification through the Sustainable Jersey program. Sustainable Jersey has certain recommendations regarding public participation that TAC is hoping to experiment with on two upcoming road projects, Walnut Street and Southgate Parkway. A big part of the Sustainable Jersey requirement is simply to document that you have communicated to the public what your existing approach for including public participation actually is. TAC will be working on this in the weeks and months ahead. We anticipate that this will be an important addition to the written policy that our professionals will be working on together with TAC to create by next spring. So in the meantime, tonight's resolution is kind of a next step in this project. And I'd like to extend special thanks to Jim Hunt, Jim Slate, and Tim Quinn for all the work and effort they have put into moving this project forward. On my general comment, I'd like to, on our police department, I'd like to echo the congratulations to Taylor Nelson, who is a very accomplished young woman who's been hired to serve as an officer in our police department. I know we value diversity in our department, and I'm very glad to see another woman being added to the force. I'd also like to congratulate Mark DiCarlo on his retirement, and Acting Chief Bob Shearer, who will be replacing him as chief effective July 1st. I look forward to the public ceremony that we'll be holding on July 6th, and that's open to the public. Everyone's welcome to attend. On the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, I echo Peter's comments about congratulating Mary Vole on her appointment to the committee. And I will just highlight that the Seniors Committee's next meeting will be July 18th. It's open to the public, and the Zoom link is on the agenda, which is on the website. I did want to comment briefly on the Normandy Parkway sidewalk project. For anyone who may not know, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, the State Historic Preservation Organization is holding a public meeting at which this project that we have proposed for Normandy Parkway will be discussed. The meeting will include some time for general comment, but given that they have 5 projects on the agenda, the public comment time may be somewhat limited. As someone who is passionate about the importance of appreciating and preserving our local history, I'm very interested to see what SHPO has to say about this project. So the link to this meeting can be found online by Googling the New Jersey State Historic Preservation Office. And I'll be there, and it'll be interesting to see what their thoughts and recommendations are. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. For my committee reports for this month for legislation, we actually obviously have the proclamations, which we presented earlier this evening, which were, I think, well-deserved and well-timed. For communications, I did want to note, as summer approaches, we will be approaching the publication and dissemination of our annual mailed newsletter. So the Communications Standing Committee will be working together with our professionals in the coming weeks to start drafting that for distribution. For engineering, as Deputy Mayor Wilson stated, the Normandy Parkway meeting with SHPO is tomorrow. The easiest way to find that information, I believe do we have that on the website? Or if you need the link, you can contact Town Hall. Otherwise, like Deputy Mayor said, Google it. It's actually the easiest way to find it. Their website's pretty difficult to navigate. It should come right up. Also for engineering, Sherman Avenue reconstruction work has begun, and we're excited to see those improvements going on in Fairchild, not only just for curbing and drainage, but also adding sidewalks and raised intersections for traffic calming. Lastly, for engineering on our list of resolutions tonight, we approved the crack sealing funds for crack sealing as well as resurfacing. So we're looking forward to getting some more roads repaired and repaved. Unfortunately, due to the high costs of petroleum, the cost of asphalt has skyrocketed over the past few months, which is a challenge. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get as many streets as we had originally intended done this year. For general commentary, again, I wanted to echo how excited we are to be hiring a professional consultant to do a redesign of Collinsville Playground and Tucker Fields in Collinsville. As Mr. Ravitz said, this is an opportunity to plan for the future, to have a common space for our residents to enjoy everything Morris Township has to offer in a modern space that fits and suits the needs of people of all ages in Collinsville. So we're very excited. We're excited to put federal dollars towards this, and we're hopeful to get additional grant funding to help pay for a significant investment in Collinsville coming in the near future. I also want to commend Chief Mark DiCarlo for all of his years of service and look forward to celebrating his career in July, and congratulate Chief Robert Shearer, Acting Chief Shearer, upon your soon-to-be swearing-in ceremony and being appointed as chief tonight. Congratulations and kudos to you for all that you have accomplished thus far in your career. As a firefighter for 14 years, I also wanted to commend and congratulate Kyle Meyer on your appointment to our career division. One thing that if residents don't know, in order to be hired in the Morris Township Fire Department as a career firefighter, you must first be a volunteer firefighter in our department. And that it pays dividends for our residents to have folks not only from Morris Township serving us as EMTs and firefighters, but having them have that institutional knowledge before they're even sworn in as paid firefighters provides a tremendous value to our residents. So congratulations to Kyle. We've served many years together in the fire department, and I'm very happy for you and for you to be joining Sean and Brendan and continuing to serve, within the department your father did for so many years. And lastly, I just wanted to note that we had our Memorial Day parade again, first time in a few years since COVID in our services. And it was my first year joining the veterans in going to all the cemeteries and memorials on Memorial Day to lay the wreaths and commemorate the lives lost. It was an incredibly moving service, not only at the cemeteries and memorials, but also at Town Hall and at the Green. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to continue to partner with the veterans to not only continue these services in the years in the future, but also maybe open some of these up to try to get broader attendance from the public, including the laying of the wreaths in the morning. So thank you to Jim Kavanaugh and Chief Romano and the American Legion and everyone who put those efforts together, including the police departments and our first responders and Mr. Quinn. That does it for my reports. So with that, we will be going to our third and final public comment period of the evening, dedicated to general commentary. So if you wish to speak, right now we have 14 members of the public on Zoom. Please state your name and address for the record. Please note the comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. If you have questions you'd like answered, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back to you for this purpose. May I please have a motion to open the public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First hand raised, which has been up for a while, former Mayor Jeff Grazel.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Good to see everybody tonight. I've been listening to the entire meeting. In particular, I wanted to hear the discussion on the Park Avenue ramp project. And I thought that the residents made some excellent points before, and I didn't feel like I needed to weigh in. But I was moved by several comments by the Township Committee members, so I thought I would speak now and give some additional commentary. No need for a response, obviously, but I hope you will take it into consideration.
Jeff, can you please just give us your address for the record? I know you're not
Yeah. Sorry, Jeffrey Grazel, 1 Indian Head Road, Morris Township.
Thank you.
So in particular, I was moved by Deputy Mayor Wilson's commentary, which I thought was spot on. And I encourage everybody after this meeting, when the meeting is available on YouTube, to go back and listen to what Kathy Wilson had to say about this project. She made some excellent points, and she planted a seed for a solution, actually, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But before I get to what I think is a solution that Kathy hit on, is 2 other comments. I wanted to first push back on the notion that voting no on this project is a vote for the status quo. I also wanted to push back on the notion that voting no on this is a vote for doing nothing. As I understand it, I'm not on the governing body, but this is a preferred solution Preferred by who is a big question. Who got input into what this quote unquote preferred solution is not known to me. But I think a no vote on this is a vote to say, go back to the drawing board and come back to us with additional solutions so we can speak to multiple possibilities as opposed to being just given one solution that somebody else thinks is best. Because what is best for other people, as the residents stated, and as Township committee members stated, what's best for other people isn't necessarily best for Morris Township. And if we want the best solution for everybody, we need to look at all possibilities, not just one possibility. So I think the obvious answer is to vote no and to go back and force them to come up with other solutions so there can be a broader discussion on the possibilities. That's one point I wanted to make. Second point is to refer the committee back to something similar where the county came to Morris Township many years ago. I think it might be 10 years ago. And maybe the only person on the committee who will remember is Peter Mancuso. But Tim Quinn has some history on this that can speak to, you guys can speak to about that. And that is Hanover Avenue. So there's a section in Hanover Avenue between Burnham Road and Speedwell Avenue, where it's only one lane in each direction, where the rest of Hanover Avenue is 2 lanes. And the county came to us asking that we widen our road on both the Morris Township side and the Morris Plains side to 2 lanes so that it would match everything. And at that time, Morris Township, we had a discussion and we voted no, because although the county wanted it and they thought it was best for the county, it wasn't best for Morris Township. And we actually voted no. And to this day, there's only a single lane that goes through Morris Township, because if we had widened it, who gets the impacts of that widened road? Morris Township. Because of why? Because of traffic flow that's upstream, development upstream, which is exactly what we're talking about here tonight. And Morris Township voted no. And the reason I voted no at the time is because as my background as an engineer, I know that traffic flows like water. Traffic will find the easiest route, especially now with technology where Google and Waze will tell you the way to go, where the least traffic is. You make a solution easier, more cars will just come to utilize that solution because it's better than what they have right now. So building a better solution at Park Avenue, which you think is better, I think is just going to draw more cars there. And given the reason for the backup on Park Avenue, which is overdevelopment in Florham Park, unless, and listen to this, unless there is a moratorium on building in Florham Park and a moratorium on building in Madison Avenue, making this route easier for Park Avenue today is only going to allow more building on the corridor in those places till we get back to what is the situation today. Cars are going to find the easiest way to go. And if we make it easier in Morris Township to access Route 24, then all the cars from Florham Park and Madison will come to Morris Township because that's where the easy way to go is, as opposed to going to other routes, which are in other towns. That's the second point I want to make. And the last point, I know I'm running out of my 5 minutes.
You're at 5 minutes, so sir.
If you could afford me 1 extra minute, I just wanted to touch on Mayor Wilson's solution. And Kathy had a great idea. She said, why aren't we looking at shuttle services? So when we talk about spending taxpayer money, and it's great that taxpayer money is being allocated, there might be better ways to allocate the money. So instead of building a ramp here, Kathy touched on shuttles.
Okay, Mr. Gardner, time's up. We appreciate it.
You're really not going to let me finish my point? Okay, I will come back.
Everyone,
I will come back for a second 5 minute period. Okay, I'll let you cut me off, but I'm coming back for a second 5 minute period. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time on that. We will now move to Jim O'Reilly, I believe was actually next. Mr. O'Reilly, if you can unmute yourself.
James O'Reilly?
Yep.
Okay. He's coming up. There he is.
Thank you. I didn't see how to unmute before because it wasn't on my screen. Anyway, thank you. Question.
Mr. O'Reilly, name and address for the record, please. Sorry to interrupt.
James O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way, Morris Township. Question for Mr. Ravitz. What's a categorical member? And I have a second question, but not for Mr. Ravitz. What is a categorical member? Is it just someone who subscribes to the pool?
No, a categorical, there are different memberships, family memberships, individual memberships. There's different categories that you can sign up for the pool that have slightly different rates, your in-town rates, out-of-town rates, no children rates. Those are categories.
Okay, it all refers to pool membership, though.
It all refers to the pool membership, yes.
Okay. And the second question was for Mr. Mancuso. I agree with him that we should protect the kids in our public schools. I want to make sure, though, that the police assigned to that duty have been well trained for the particular requirements of school safety, and that they have been trained not to make students feel over-policed, or that matters that would normally, without police presence, would result in disciplinary action by the school administration might somehow become criminalized, and they would wind up with records of some kind or other. And who do they report to? The chief of police or the principal of the school? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. O'Reilly. I'll ask, our class 3 specials are trained very, very carefully. They've all been police people for many years. But I'll ask Mr. Quinn to address the last 2 questions that you brought up, sir. Tim?
Mr. O'Reilly, the class 3 special officers, one of the requirements is that they have to be a retired police officer, meaning that they serve more than 25 years.
Tim, can you speak up? You're not coming through clear.
I couldn't hear you.
Mr. O'Reilly, class 3 special police officers, there's a certain requirement that they have to be retired police officers, so they've served at least 25 years of service. They're also required to go through the school resource officer training as part of that. They serve under the authority of the chief of police. That's why they're members of the police department, and we do not take a role in the disciplinary process in the school for misfractions and that kind of thing, unless it's something of a criminal nature.
Is there, are they trained to handle cases so that cases that might normally just be matters of discipline don't rise to the level of criminal charges simply by the way they're handled?
That was my statement, sir. They do not get into the disciplinary process unless it's a criminal offense.
Well,
for example, if there is an assault in the school and somebody beats somebody up and puts them in the hospital, that's a criminal offense. The police department is involved in it. If there's a dispute between 2 students, that will be handled by the principal's office.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Mr. Kelly, I see your hand raised.
Hi, Tom Kelly, 11 Arrowhead Road. I just wanted to make a statement regarding if the township does vote in favor of this resolution, what kind of options will the township have to back out if you are not given solutions that you seek? Is there an option for something to be built into your resolution set to say yes to move forward? What if the county comes back and just does not take any of the residents' concerns into consideration? Also, I wanted to make a comment on the mayor's statements here regarding the collision numbers in the DOT Smart Solution Study. Oprah requested all the accidents regarding that, and I worked with Morris Township, Florham Park, with both denied that being in their jurisdiction. So I was able to work with Hanover Township Police Department, their traffic division, and the gentleman I worked with says I've maybe responded to a handful of collisions due to the crossover. So when I looked at the map of the DOT Smart Solution Study and all that regarding the numbers, it didn't line up with the amount of numbers that they're citing versus what is actually from crossing over. I do understand the inconvenience, but I doubt their numbers regarding actual accidents. They're counting everything at that intersection. And we all know where the issue is on Columbia Turnpike. It's about a half mile up the road regarding the dangerous intersection. And my other comment is regarding one of the mayor's statements mentioning that we should be looking at 10 years and then into the future, what kind of solutions this preferred alternative will offer. But their own study says after 5 years, this won't. So with we have to consider the development that is happening currently and in the future on Punch Bowl, Madison Avenue, and what Florham Park is doing. I just think considering their own study, we're going to be sitting at this table again in 10 years. They're going to do the project and they're going to say, what now? So thank you for your time. And I hope you take those thoughts into consideration as well.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And I think we can certainly modify the resolution should we be approving one next month to tailor the language that satisfies the desires of the committee. So I'm definitely open to making additions to the resolution and crafting it in a way that is specific to Morris Township for sure. Mr. Goldberg.
Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. Thank you very much for the sharing your thoughts on the Route 24 proposed ramp. Just a couple of comments on that. I heard Mr. Ravitz say that he's skeptical regarding the turn numbers and the saving of time on the turn numbers. I too am skeptical on those as well. And, I know that's always touted to and pointed to as one of the big benefits, but I don't really think anyone can really say with any degree of certainty, to Ms. Olivia's point, what's going to happen in the future and what those turn ratios are going to actually be like. In terms of also Ms. Olivo-Moore and Mr. Gyorfy's comments, you referenced the intersection, the accidents. Mr. Kelly brought up, I don't really think the traffic data points to a lot of accidents in that area. I've lived right on this intersection since 1994. That's 28 years. In my time here, I have yet to see a single horrific accident at that site, which at that intersection caused by the crossover. Not saying that it hasn't happened, it probably has. But to Mr. Kelly's point, I think the Normandy Parkway, Columbia Turnpike intersection, it was over the last year, point was rated one of the most dangerous intersections in Morris County. So, I just want to make sure there's no spurious association between the crossover coming off of 24 to make that left on Park Avenue, because I don't really think the data bears it out in terms of horrible accidents at that site. And which also leads me to Mr. Mancuso's comments, where he had a very good suggestion, and he had said that Mr. Quinn and Mr. Slater are very plugged in to this entire Route 24 ramp proposal. What I would like to ask, if possible, I think the members of the community would benefit from maybe hearing from them. And if there's nothing imminent here, maybe potentially having those comments shared and their expertise on their thoughts on this in July, and maybe voting on this in August in terms of just, vetting out any additional information that can be provided to the public. So that would be something I would request as well, because I would like to hear from Mr. Slate and Mr. Quinn, who's also former chief of police here, as to his experience and what he's seen at that intersection over the years in terms of traffic and accidents. And then also to Mr. Mancuso's point that there's really no moral decision here based with this. I tend to disagree with that slightly. There is a concept of environmental justice at play here, which is they're proposing and will be built a 5-story, 220-unit apartment complex that will literally sit abutting this ramp. And people are going to have to live there. And I wouldn't want to see anyone have to live literally on an off-ramp here in Morris County on the intersection of Park Avenue. I mean, we've always said that the county is going to have our best interests at heart. They're going to look out for interests of the residents. But, Morris County believes that this preferred plan will improve traffic flow at the intersection. However, on the other hand, the Morris County Planning Board showed really no concern for increased traffic for this new apartment building on Park Avenue, literally located on the ramp. So I'm a little bewildered as to why Morris County would allow a new apartment building to be built in Hanover on Park Avenue at the same time as the county is proposing this off-ramp. Just none of it makes sense. I think we're just, the status quo and doing nothing. I agree with Mr. Grazel's point, which is that, a vote no on this is to ensure the status quo. I just don't think that that's actually truthful. In fact, as I was thinking about it on this call, in terms of status quo, I think many of us may be familiar with the 24 West entrance onto 287 North, right? That's a status quo situation that's backed up on the daily. I've seen numerous accidents of people cutting across 24, trying to not have to sit in that traffic. So, if there's a status quo situation, yes, thank you. Very excellent. You see, I have 1 minute left. Perhaps when we upgrade the technology, maybe there'll be a red light that bleeps or something, or some other indicator. But anyway, there's a lot of status quo issues going on around here. My view is let the status quo go on this one, make everyone go back to the drawing board. This is the preferred plan, but there's got to be a better plan that takes the traffic off of this intersection on Park Avenue. And we shouldn't really have to settle for anything less than, something that actually makes sense. So thank you for your comments on this. It's very refreshing to actually be able to dialogue with our elected officials on it. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time and attention on it, and would actually ask for consideration on maybe voting on this in August and having Mr. Quinn and Mr. Slade and maybe some other township professionals, Mr. Fissinger, actually hearing from them what their thought processes are on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Mr. O'Reilly, you have your hand raised still. Did you want to make another comment?
Where do you go?
I think he lowered his hand. Any further comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Close the public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that leaves us to adjournment. It is now 9:03 p.m. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our next Township Committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom with closed session at 5 p.m. Thank you everyone for your engagement and participation this evening, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.